So I genuinely had such a good time with Shazam Fury of the Gods. I mean, sure, it's not a perfect movie, it's not without its faults, but I had such a good time with it. I feel like it worked on so many different levels. Firstly, from a storyline perspective, I think it's so deep, all of the superheroics that these kids have to do whilst also having the burden of being foster kids and all of the challenges that they are going through from the first movie to this film. And then you have a set of villains who are so determined to kill them and just retrieve all of the powers that they feel are rightly theirs and have unfairly been given to this group of kids. I honestly think it just worked on so many different levels. And most of all, it really did show that the DCEU had the potential to be so strong if it was just managed in the right way. But anyway, let's talk about all of the main things that happened from a spoiler perspective in this film. And of course, this is your spoiler warning. So if you haven't seen Shazam Fury of the Gods yet, definitely check it out and then come back to watch this video. Or if you don't mind things being spoiled, then of course, sit back and relax as we're going to be talking about all of the main things. So first of all, I did not see it coming when Lucy Liu's character, Kalypso, so heartlessly kills her sister, Hespera, just because, you know, she didn't fully agree with her plan. I really did feel like it really did show how ruthless Kalypso really is. And then all of the fights that she has directly with Billy Batson's Shazam character, especially with the dragon, and the way in which Shazam, you know, he was mocked for a long time that he's really not that intelligent, but then he really does show that actually, do you know what, I am really, really intelligent. So first he was able to revive his spirit for a short amount of time, then was able to get her to be on his side, and then to reduce the side of the force field really did show that, you know, he is a lot smarter than people give him credit for. But at the same time, before all of this, I loved all of the humor, for example, calling it Solo Man, and just really showing that, you know, at the end of the day, he is a kid. But, you know, from a fighting perspective, loved it, all of the fights with him and the dragon and against Kalypso's character, and then ultimately deciding to sacrifice himself for the greater good. It was just such an emotional moment, and he ultimately died as a hero, and I just feel like it was just so incredible from a story arc perspective, as of course from an emotional point of view, he never really knew how he fitted in, and he felt like everything was just such a burden on him, and he saw himself as the leader in this family, so it was just so powerful. But then I did think it was right to then revive him right at the end, and we will talk more about Wonder Woman in a minute. So I just feel like, you know, it was a really nice happy ending, and I just really do want to see more from the Shazam family of characters, as they are just so good. I thought the Black Apple was really, really interesting, as, you know, Zachary Levi's Shazam character was just throwing it around. But then this ultimately, this particular object is the thing that, you know, the three daughters of Atlas are so determined to get. So I thought that was quite interesting and quite funny. And then I thought it was really, really interesting how, you know, it's supposed to be something that is kept for the God realm, but then actually when it's planted on Earth, it just goes rotten and then creates all of these monster-based characters, which I thought was really, really fascinating. But then right at the end of this movie, when you do see it properly being planted, then it does kind of turn into a bit of an Eden-like scenario, which was a really true, interesting reflection. Now let's talk about Wonder Woman. So I thought it was absolutely brilliant how they did a very similar fake out to what they did right at the end of the first Shazam movie, where of course Henry Cavill refused to make an appearance as Superman, so they had a bit of a headless cameo, and they did the same thing with Wonder Woman. I thought it was so clever how they just used that trope once again. And then of course when Diamond Hounsou's wizard character uses his magic and it kind of looks as if he is in Wonder Woman's body, I honestly thought it was absolutely hilarious. And then because of this, it was just so well earned when she did eventually pop up right at the end of the movie, and we had her iconic theme tune, and, you know, she is the last remaining god, so she was able to revive Atlas Staff's powers, and then of course was able to bring back Billy Batson as well. And on that point, I loved it how they threw back to the first movie, where Zachary Levi's version of Billy Batson breaks the staff and then leaves it, which is of course how it found its way into the museum right at the start of this movie. So I just feel like it was just connected so well, firstly to the first Shazam movie and then to the wider DCEU. And of course, you know, the DCEU is being cancelled and kind of just disappearing, and of course you're going to have the DCEU soon, which will definitely be flooded with post-credit scenes. So, you know, all of that has taken place, but it was really sad nonetheless. Speaking of post-credit scenes, of course we had one in the first movie where we saw Mr. Mind speaking to Mark Strong's character, so it's a shame that that post-credit scene didn't ever go anywhere. Apparently the caterpillar Mr. Mind was going to be in this movie, but then the director David Sandberg said, you know, he didn't want to overstuff it. I do get that, but I feel like it would have benefited just having some kind of continuity with that particular post-credit scene so that it didn't amount to nothing. From a human perspective, the leads of this movie really are Freddie Freeman and Billy Batson, and I think they are just such awesome leads. I feel like firstly they are really, really funny, as well as dealing with a lot of emotional stuff. For example, abandonment issues, just needing to be a leader from Billy Batson's perspective. But then Freddie, I feel like he is just dealing with so much in terms of just being a little bit awkward, in terms of just speaking his mind, just being a true super fan of all of the superhero stuff. I just feel like as leads, they were just so good. And they were just so funny at the same time. They had so much light relief, so many comedic moments. I thought Mary was really, really good. She definitely gave Billy Batson a lot to think about. And I thought it was really interesting how it was the same actress playing her from a human perspective as well as from a superheroics perspective. If they do continue this Shazam mythology, this character definitely is going to be the third main character. And I absolutely loved all of the family dynamics, both from a heroic perspective as well as all of the squabbling that was happening from a villain's perspective. If anything, I would have loved it to have been explored a lot more with all of the Atlas daughters, as I feel like there was so much potential to have even more craziness taking place with these characters, even more betrayal, even more drama. I absolutely loved the wizard character. I never thought I would say that, but I thought it was so good. I firstly loved his little story arc. Firstly, in terms of being imprisoned and trapped and just wanting to die, and then reluctantly having to help all of the heroes. And of course, he is a sage of wisdom, so he is able to impart this. But this time, he doesn't have any magical powers, so isn't able to necessarily help them from that perspective. But you know, he was a really, really funny character. And he really was questioning whether or not he did choose the right champion, one that he was looking for years to find. And I just love that they gave him a much bigger role this time compared to the first Shazam movie, and of course, Black Adam. So I just feel like he fitted in really, really well. Like I said, Freddie was just so good in this movie. Potentially, you know, he kind of stole the film as he was just so funny. His line delivery was so good. I feel like he just acted so well. Jack Dylan Grazer just played him so well. And there are so many different emotions across this film that he just owns. You can tell that he's just having a blast making this film. And I love the character growth compared to the first film, as of course in the first film, you know, he is the super fan of superheroes. He is the one that has just been idolizing them for so long. And then this new guy just suddenly joins his foster family and then is just living his dream, which he just has to watch. So you can just feel his anger and his frustration. Whereas this time, you know, he is the superhero in his own right and is just doing all of that stuff on his own. And then, you know, the conflict that this means in terms of, you know, who is the real leader, who should be the real leader, him or Billy. I just feel like it worked so well, firstly from an individual perspective and then from a team perspective too. You can tell that Skittles must have paid so much money to have that brand paid partnership, especially when they said the tagline, you know, taste the rainbow. I do feel like the monsters were a little bit silly, and if anything, I feel like they detracted from the viewing experience. I know, you know, Shazam is a bit of a light-hearted film, so if you are going to have silly monsters, then this is the movie to have them in, but I just feel like they could have just improved that particular aspect. But what I did love is all of the dungeons, just the mythology of all of it. Steve, the writer, just felt really, really cool. Very Wizarding World inspired, and I just loved that area in terms of all of the Shazam family just having all of these magical doors. You know, they have the ability to just go anywhere and do anything, and they just have these true magical powers, and I just feel like it worked so well. It just embraced all of it. All of the action sequences were great. All of the humorous sequences were even better. Physical challenges were really, really good. All of the twists and turns that took place in this movie. Of course, this movie isn't a massive twist and turn based film, but all of the things that are really unexpected really do throw you. And I feel like, you know, from a foster kid's point of view, they were really, really brilliant. And the foster parents were absolutely hilarious, but also really, really loving. And they really are able to pull on your heartstrings. And there was a true combination of a lot of mind-based challenges for these characters, as well as physical-based challenges too. And they just stepped up to all of it so well. But, you know, in conclusion, I had such a good time with Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I feel like it worked really, really well from an action point of view. There was so much humor, so much heart, so much superheroic stuff, so much brilliant mythology. It's just such a shame that the DCEU is ultimately getting cancelled and we're going to have a brand new DC universe. But I just hope in some way, shape or form that these characters are able to find themselves in that new James Gunn universe, as of course, you know, James Gunn is really, really good friends with both Peter Safran and Zachary Levi, so maybe they'll be able to do something, provided that this movie does really, really well in the box office. But, you know, now I'd love to hear from you. What did you think of Shazam! Fury of the Gods? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in my next video.